I know what you're thinking. Glacius? Come on, that's one of the most straightforward heroes in the game. Well, as simple as Glacius seems and is, he's a hero that a lot of people don't play to his maximum potential. In my opinion, Glacius is currently one of the most underrated heroes in Han, mostly because a lot of people don't utilize two of his abilities, and because most people also underestimate the effect of his aura. The first thing that a lot of people do wrong is his skill build. A lot of people seem to think that Thunder Blast is a spell that you don't need, and having your aura and Ice Imprisonment leveled is plenty. This simply isn't true. Thunder Blast has a 700 range and a 400 radius. The range of the spell, of course, is only taking into account the epicenter of the circle. This means that to calculate the actual max range, you have to add the two numbers together, giving Glacius' slow a whopping range of 1100, probably the longest range slow in the game. And since the only attribute of the spell that goes up when you put points into it is the damage, which isn't important anyways, the spell is probably something you should pick up at level 1 or 2. Glacius' aura is one of the most game-breaking abilities in the game, capable of supplying your entire team with 2 mana a second all the time. That's the equivalent of having 4 stacking Rings of the Teacher near you all the time. Heroes that normally cast a lot of spells early in the game become spamming powerhouses. The best part about the aura is that it isn't percentage based. It's a set amount of mana, meaning that everybody regenerates mana at a steady, static pace, making Glacius the perfect accessory to an early game ganking team. Now, although caster heroes obviously benefit from having more mana, the real winners here are the heroes that have annoying spells that aren't usually meant to be spammed because of mana issues. Heroes like Pebbles, Devourer, Accursed, Pharaoh, Madman, Andromeda, Blacksmith, Fade, Vindicator, and Valkyrie have incredible early game potential when combined with an unending source of mana regeneration. Because of this, you should always level your aura as a priority. Thunder Blast and Ice Imprisonment have to take the backseat until it is max, staying at rank 1. When using Ice Imprisonment and Thunder Blast, always try to get the most out of both abilities. Don't Thunder Blast while an enemy is still frozen. You want to maximize the slow. Try to use it after the duration on Ice Imprisonment ends. At rank 4 of Ice Imprisonment, you can start using it to freeze allies in certain situations. If you have an ally who's being focused down, and your friends are nearby but too far to help, freeze him to make him survive long enough for help to arrive. On to Glacius' ult, another one of those underrated spells. Glacius' ult basically turns himself into a blend tech blender for 4 seconds. I usually get my ult at level 6 or 7, depending on how the game is going. Most people don't think Glacius' ult is good because it puts you in a dangerous situation. There's 2 basic ways to make sure you don't get focused down while ulting. The first is common sense. Don't ult at bad times. A lot of people think that Glacius' ult is an opener ability, but really it is meant to use halfway through the fight. The reasoning for this is because you have to wait a few seconds after the fight has started. There's a much lower chance of heroes still having nukes or stuns up. Another way to keep yourself from dying is to freeze yourself. At rank 4, freezing yourself reduces the damage you take by 80%, making it perfectly synergized with your ult. Sadly, it won't stop people from interrupting your ult, but if you combine both tactics into one, you should have no problem dropping a good ult. I find that freezing yourself is usually a much better investment for a team fight than freezing an enemy, because freezing one person doesn't compare to blendering an entire team. I should also note that Thunder Blast's slow stacks with your ult slow, so if possible, blink in, slow, freeze yourself, and then ult for maximum effect. Enemies trying to run will be slowed by 60%. Glacius is a babysitter, but he's also a ganker. A lot of people underestimate his ability to gank. Like I said, his slow has a 1100 range and slows for 30% at level 1. Combined with a powerful immobilize and unlimited mana, Glacius is a perfect ganker hero. His one weakness is that he doesn't really work well by himself. Always bring a teammate to come along with you while you're ganking to take full advantage of your slow and immobilize. I should also note that Glacius' freeze lasts 10 seconds on creeps, making farming a little easier on Glacius, especially when fighting neutral creeps. During the laning phase, you should be letting your teammate get most of the last hits, while denying as much as possible. Mid-game, you should be ganking with teammates. Late game, you are more or less only as good as your items, aside from ulting. You want to make sure that you aren't dead weight for your team. The hardest part about being a good Glacius is not dying. Glacius is a very fragile hero who often can't afford much survivability, so you want to play your cards cautiously. No team wants a feeder Glacius on their team. Stay in the back during team fights, slowing and stunning from a distance when not ulting. Item-wise, Glacius is a pretty free hero. Unlike most int heroes, Glacius doesn't need much mana regeneration early game and can completely rely on his aura. I like to grab boots and 2 bracers early, it's really all you need. Since Glacius doesn't need much, you're expected to buy wards throughout the game. If somebody else bought wards, then you're expected to buy a courier. You're also expected to upgrade the courier. You should also counter-ward the enemy if possible. Don't feel bad about not having too much money early in the game. If your ganks work well, you should be able to farm up a sizable amount of gold while simultaneously being your team's ward mule. Portal Key is a must-have item for me with Glacius, not only because of his ult, but also for survivability. Besides that, you are free to your own version of Glacius. Most people like to build support items like Astrolabe. I've seen some people get a Shrunken Head, but I would stay away from that idea. Shrunken Head is expensive, and you shouldn't need it to drop good ults. A good alternative is Nullstone, which gives you a decent survivability, a more secure ultimate, and an extremely high mana regeneration. Storm Spirit and Coldra are great late-game additions to your crowd control arsenal. Tablet of Command is another item to think about if you can utilize it correctly. Staff of the Master gives you survivability while simultaneously boosting your ult, but I personally don't recommend it on Glacius because his ult is already powerful enough, and Staff of the Master is extremely expensive.